Welcome to the pod Biomanufacturing and Fermentation Technology. In this episode, we translate microbial science, process engineering, and manufacturing realities into insights that scale.
Welcome to The Debate. So imagine a pristine $500 million biomanufacturing plant, right? It has these miles of gleaming stainless steel piping, state-of-the-art sterile bioreactors, perfectly routed utility lines.
The kind of place that looks great on a corporate brochure.
Exactly. It looks like this monument to scientific certainty. But what if I told you that before the first cell is even cultured in that building, that facility is mathematically doomed to fail?
Well, it's a terrifying thought, but honestly, it happens constantly. We walk into these facilities and we see all the physical infrastructure, and we just assume almost automatically that the financial and strategic foundation is, just as solid as the concrete floor we're standing on.
Yet, when you step into the actual realities of advanced manufacturing right now in 2026, that illusion of precision just completely evaporates.
Oh, totally.
I mean, we are looking at an investment landscape that is incredibly unforgiving right now. Capital intensity is at an all-time high, financial markets are tightening up, sustainability mandates are legally binding now, and regulators, they demand absolute traceability from a single cell all the way down to a commercial vial.
Right. You can't just hand-wave the process anymore.
No, you really can't. So today, we are running a bit of a thought experiment. Imagine we are the chief technology and strategy officers at a top-tier biomanufacturing investment firm.
Okay, I like it. High stakes.
Very high stakes. We are walking into an exclusive investor summit to deliver a pitch. And the core thesis I am bringing to that summit is this: the biggest risk in biomanufacturing today is not technical failure in a laboratory. The biggest risk is treating techno-economic analysis and the computational systems that actually power it as an afterthought, rather than the core decision engine of the entire enterprise.
Which, I have to point out, requires a massive psychological shift for these investors. I mean, historically, the entire due diligence process was built around a single highly controlled question, right? Does this novel molecule work in a lab?
Yeah, and that question is obsolete. It really is. Today, the question isn't whether it works in a test tube. It's whether AI-assisted tools and computational synergy can fundamentally de-risk the entire life cycle to create durable value at an industrial scale.
Industrial scale being the key word there.
Exactly. So in our pitch, my position is that computational synergy, which is the integration of generative biology, digital twins, and Monte Carlo risk engines, that is the ultimate decision engine. It converts all this fragmented data into scalable commercial leadership. We can reduce technical, regulatory, and commercial risk before a single dollar of major capital is deployed. Proprietary datasets and the ability to run like millions of virtual experiments, those have replaced traditional patents as the true driver of company valuation.
Well, I come at it from a different way.
Okay, let's hear it.
While that computational vision is incredibly seductive, an investment strategy built primarily on AI and digital twins is highly vulnerable to fundamental data rot.
Data rot.
Yes, data rot. Without flawless underlying data architecture and, quite frankly, rigorous physical validation, these computational tools are nothing more than visually sophisticated but operationally weak dashboards. So I will argue to these investors that true financial stewardship requires a relentless focus on data readiness and the autonomy stack.
The autonomy stack.
Right. If you don't have cyber-physical safety, hard override logic, and perfectly interoperable datasets, generative models do not prevent failure. They simply accelerate the speed at which a company hits a manufacturing wall.
Okay, I hear that concern, I really do. But let's look at how we actually evaluate the financial foundation of these companies during due diligence. Because, the initial investment decision dictates the entire trajectory of an asset.
It sets the DNA of the whole project, yeah.
Exactly. And in the past, we relied on a single net present value, or NPV. You plug in your assumptions for cell yield, you guess your timeline, you hit calculate, and you get a single dollar figure.
Which everyone in the boardroom nods at.
Right. It feels highly precise, but it is mathematically useless for modern biomanufacturing. It completely ignores the reality of scale-up. So I propose to the summit that Monte Carlo risk engines are the new mandatory standard for valuation.
Well, NPV certainly assumes a static world. It assumes your upstream fermentation process never encounters an unexpected shear stress issue, or, your supply chain never faces utility inflation.
To put it bluntly, using a single NPV is like assuming you'll roll a 7 with 2 dice every single time just because it's the statistical average.
Right, which never happens.
Never. Monte Carlo valuation recognizes that sometimes you are going to roll snake eyes, and it asks, do we have enough cash in the bank to survive when we do? Instead of plugging in one best guess number, a Monte Carlo simulation runs 10,000 parallel universes,
Testing the boundaries.
testing every possible combination of good and bad luck. What if yield drops by 10%, while raw material costs spike by 5%, and regulators delay approval by 3 months? We simulate entire distributions for technical variables, regulatory timing, and price realization. So we can look at a probability curve and say, there is exactly a 68% chance this facility clears our investment hurdle.
Okay, I will grant you that a single NPV is a flawed, static tool. But doesn't this vulnerability exist regardless of the model? I mean, Monte Carlo outputs are only as reliable as their inputs.
Sure, garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly. If you feed a sophisticated risk engine with fragmented, siloed data, you are just producing highly precise fiction. This is where AI-augmented diligence has to shift its focus entirely. We can't just audit the patents anymore. We have to audit the data architecture itself.
Okay, but what does that data audit actually look like on the factory floor?
It means we look for that data rot I mentioned earlier. Are the upstream fermentation datasets, the downstream purification datasets, and the quality control logs actually talking to each other?
Usually they aren't.
Right. I mean, think about the reality of a pilot plant today. You have missing batches where sensors just dropped offline. You have unstructured laboratory notes written by an exhausted scientist at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. You have historical time series data that doesn't map to the manufacturing execution system, the MES, or the enterprise resource planning software, the ERP.
It's a mess.
It is. And when you have a gap in the timeline, your predictive AI doesn't know what to do, so it's hallucinating a trend. If we can't trace exactly who entered the data, what the instrument calibration was, and when it was changed, regulators will throw it out. And as investors, we should too.
And hear me out here. That chaotic data you're talking about, the missing batches and the 2 a.m. scribbled lab notes, that is exactly why we shouldn't rely on humans for scale-up.
Oh, really?
Yes. If we structure that data, we can feed it into a digital twin, which removes the human error entirely. This is the critical operational inflection point, moving from virtual valuation to virtual scale-up. A digital twin isn't just a static 3D rendering. It's a dynamic digital representation that ingests process data and actually simulates the physics of the system. And we are dealing with intensely nonlinear interactions in biomanufacturing.
Highly non-linear. I mean, you change one parameter and the ripple effects across the bioprocess are massive and often completely unpredictable.
Right, so take oxygen demand as a perfect example of why the twin is absolutely necessary. In a, let's say, 50-liter benchtop tank, getting oxygen to your mammalian cells is easy. You just stir faster.
Simple enough.
But try that in a 50,000-liter commercial bioreactor. If you increase the agitator speed, the massive impeller blades create incredible shear stress that literally tears the cells apart. Meanwhile, the cells at the bottom of the tank are being crushed by hydrostatic pressure, and the ones at the top are suffocating.
Yeah, it's a nightmare for process engineers.
Historically, solving that meant empirical trial and error. You build a bigger tank, you run a campaign. The cells die, you tweak the speed, you try again. It burns millions of dollars. But a digital twin simulates the exact fluid dynamics of that specific tank. We can adjust the stir speed and the oxygen sparging virtually 10,000 times before we spend a dime building a physical impeller that might destroy the product.
That's a compelling argument, but have you considered that a digital twin without real-time physical validation is actually worse than useless? It's actively dangerous.
Dangerous? How so?
The major risk here is the hype surrounding autonomous optimization. The idea that a machine learning control loop will just seamlessly optimize adaptive feeding or adjust those impeller speeds without human intervention is a complete fantasy without the right infrastructure.
Wait, you don't believe we are moving towards self-driving manufacturing systems?
I believe the transition is evolutionary, not abrupt. Look, to cross that inflection point safely and actually protect the $500 million investment, companies must build a trustworthy autonomy stack. The twin cannot just be a simulation layer floating in the cloud somewhere. It has to be grounded in process analytical technology, real-time, inline sensors.
Okay, yeah, inline sensors are crucial.
But more importantly, the autonomy stack requires strict uncertainty quantification and cyber-physical safety protections. What happens when the AI model encounters a biological anomaly it has never seen before? And its proposed solution is to, say, crank the valve pressure past the structural limits of the stainless steel.
Well, the physical system has to have safeguards.
Exactly. The physical system must have hard override logic to reject that command. Without cyber-physical safety, AI optimization is just a lab demonstration that can literally rupture a commercial tank.
I'm not totally convinced by that line of reasoning because it treats AI as an uncontrollable black box rather than an engineering tool with defined constraints. I mean, human experts are the ones defining those control boundaries. We select the safety thresholds, we approve the model deployment.
But the model is only as good as the physics it learns.
Right, but the digital twin doesn't act autonomously in a vacuum. It acts within the physics-based parameters we set. And physical experiments don't disappear in this paradigm, they just change their function. Instead of being the only path to discovery, physical plant runs become calibration events for the model.
Okay, calibration events.
Yeah. We use targeted physical runs to anchor the twin to reality, and then we use the twin to explore the thousands of variations we couldn't possibly afford to test in the physical world.
Physical experiments becoming calibration events is the correct way to utilize a twin. I'll acknowledge that. My contention is that investors often fail to realize how rigorous that calibration must be.
Fair point.
They see a beautiful, glowing graphical interface of a bioreactor on an iPad and assume the underlying mass transfer physics are fully resolved. But if the metadata from the physical calibration run isn't perfectly curated, like if a sensor was drifting by 2 degrees and nobody logged it, the twin fundamentally diverges from reality. The AI learns the wrong physics.
Let's follow the implications of that then. If scale-up and data architecture are the true bottlenecks, like if getting the fluid dynamics right in a 50,000-liter tank is the hardest part of this industry, what does this mean for the massive influx of capital currently pouring into generative biology?
It means we might be focusing on the wrong end of the pipeline.
Well, consider this. We have AI exponentially increasing the number of biological hypotheses we can test. We are doing generative protein design, synthetic pathway generation, and enzyme engineering entirely on computers.
Which is amazing. It's compressing early-stage discovery from years down to weeks.
It is, but it also creates what we might call the generative biology paradox. If generative AI makes discovering a novel molecule lightning fast and incredibly cheap, doesn't that inherently make manufacturing capability and regulatory execution the only true differentiators left in the market?
That's a bold claim.
But think about it. If everyone can invent a novel molecule computationally, the moat isn't the invention anymore. The moat is who can scale it. And this is where AI competitive intelligence changes the game. We aren't just reading periodic market reports anymore. We have continuous computational surveillance of patent filings, clinical registries, and regulatory signals.
So you're tracking the competition's scale-up in real time.
Exactly. We can dynamically update our assessment of a competitor's manufacturing moat. We can see if a rival is pivoting their downstream process, and we can reallocate our R&D capital faster than the market narrative even solidifies.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that the moat has entirely shifted to scale up while ignoring the quality of the discovery itself. Let me tell you why.
Please do.
Speed of invention means absolutely nothing if the generative model isn't constrained by manufacturability from day one. You can use generative AI to design a highly novel enzyme with incredible catalytic efficiency in silico, right?
Sure.
But if that enzyme requires an operating temperature of 4 degrees Celsius to remain stable, the cooling cost for a 100,000-liter commercial facility will completely bankrupt the operation. Microbial metabolism generates heat. If the AI doesn't know that, the asset is worthless.
So you're saying the generative design phase must be mathematically constrained by the digital twin of the manufacturing facility. Like, you can't design a molecule without simultaneously designing its commercial environment.
Precisely. And that is precisely the opposite of how most of the industry works today. Proprietary generative models without proprietary scalable data don't create enterprise value. The danger at our 2026 Investor Summit is that capital allocators get blinded by scientific novelty.
They love a shiny new protein.
They do. They see a startup that has generated 10,000 novel proteins in a week, and they fail to ask the industrial constraint questions. Can this survive real-world energy use realities? Does it have a manufacturable process window? Can we actually build a regulatory strategy around the solvent it requires for purification? Value capture still depends entirely on industrial credibility, not just biological possibility.
I think we are actually converging on a highly powerful synthesis for our summit pitch here.
Are we?
Yeah, we are both arguing that the era of simply inventing new technologies and hoping they scale is over. The next decade belongs to organizations that can coordinate scientific innovation, digital transformation, and scalable manufacturing simultaneously.
Because uncertainty itself has become the primary engineering target.
Exactly. So let's frame this as an actionable roadmap for the investor audience. We need to leave them with a framework to look past the AI buzzwords when they evaluate a pitch. My core argument is that computational tools, specifically Monte Carlo risk engines for probabilistic valuation and dynamic digital twins for virtual scale-up, they're no longer auxiliary software.
They are the foundation.
Right, they are the core of industrial strategy. They are the only way to probabilistically de-risk massive capital deployment in an era of high capital intensity. We have to move away from false precision and embrace continuous probabilistic decision-making to maintain commercial leadership.
And my contribution tempers that ambition with operational reality. Computational ambition must be anchored by rigorous data stewardship. The true competitive moat isn't just leasing an AI model, it is having a perfectly integrated, auditable data architecture. If your upstream, downstream, and quality control systems aren't interoperable, your AI is hallucinating. True scale-up requires a defined autonomy stack with cyber-physical safety limits.
So what specific questions should an investor ask a portfolio company to actually test this? Conceptually, I'd say they need to ask how the company handles uncertainty. Is the company using static spreadsheets to forecast the next 10 years? Or are they running thousands of probabilistic simulations that account for raw material shocks and contamination events?
Good questions. On a technical level, I'd say they must ask about data provenance. Are your source records versioned, traceable, and auditable across laboratory instruments and enterprise systems? Furthermore, are your failure states captured in a machine-readable foam?
That's a big one.
It's massive. AI learns from the boundaries of failure, not just the successful runs. And finally, addressing the physical risk directly. Do your predictive models operate within a defined autonomy stack that includes strict cyber-physical override logic?
If a portfolio company cannot provide detailed, structural answers to those questions, their techno-economic analysis is built on sand, no matter how sophisticated their AI discovery platform claims to be, which honestly brings us right back to where we started today, looking at that massive $500 million biomanufacturing facility.
The beautiful stainless steel monument.
Yeah, the stainless steel, the concrete, the miles of piping, they project an image of absolute permanence and engineered certainty. But as we've explored, the true foundation of that facility isn't physical at all.
No, it's digital.
It is digital. It's the interoperable data, the probabilistic risk models, and the continuous learning systems that dictate whether that facility will be a commercial triumph or just an expensive monument to unvalidated assumptions. Understanding both the immense power of computational synergy and its profound limitations regarding data integrity is really the only way to navigate the next decade of biomanufacturing.
Well said.
It leaves us with a critical question for every capital allocator to ponder. Are you investing in a company that merely invents, or are you investing in a system that is systematically engineering away uncertainty?
You've been listening to Biomanufacturing and Fermentation Technology with Prasad Urnala. Thank you for joining me. Until next time, keep engineering biology into reliable manufacturing.